Today I'm going to be showing you guys how I make my own silicone molds for my resin jewelry. So I'm going to be making a bow shape using clear acrylic blanks that are being cut here by my sister's Glowforge machine. And I'm going to be using this glass tray that has like a higher side and a flat bottom, a bit of transfer tape and a few other things to make a really big mold for these earrings. So this is Cricut brand transfer tape, and I've just cut it off the roll to make it the size of the bottom of the glass tray. So you want to make sure that it's a really good fit. And then I'm going to be peeling it off and applying it sticky side up. You can use other tapes for this. I just find the Cricut one works really good. Just make sure you're not using anything that's like vinyl. A lot of people use tuck tape, if you know what that is. I think that works pretty good. I've tried it with packing tape too, and there's no problem with that either. So I've placed in the transfer tape sticky side up, and then I'm taking my bow shapes that are clear acrylic that my sister cut in the beginning of the video, and I'm going to be sticking it down onto the tape, pressing it firmly. And then you don't want to waste any space in your mold, so I'm going to be like arranging them as tightly as possible without having them touch each other or touching the sides. Silicone can get kind of expensive, so you really want to make sure you use up all your space so you're not wasting any silicone. So while I'm doing that, I'd just like to say I'm not a professional mold maker. I don't sell my molds, but I do know how to DIY them myself, so you can always do more research than what I'm showing to really master this. So now I have a few little spots of extra space that I want to fill up, so I'm just using some smaller circle blanks that I use for stud toppers to fill up that extra little bit. Once those are all stuck in, I'm taking isopropyl alcohol and a bit of paper towel and just making sure I wipe off all my fingerprints off the top of those blanks so that they're not in the mold. So now this is the silicone rubber Mold Star 15 Slow by Smooth On. It's a platinum cure silicone, which I find is the best for resin casting. So I'm just reading the instructions before I do it. I've got gloves on, blah, 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 safety first. So really just read the instructions before you do any of this. Now, it's easier to measure by volume for this stuff, but I didn't have any mixing cups large enough that had the measurements on the side, so I'm just doing mine by weight. But it's definitely easier to do it by volume, but they have instructions in the pack for whatever way you need to measure it. So I think this mold took about 200 grams of silicone, and it's like a huge mold, so this bottle of silicone rubber usually goes pretty far if you're doing like smaller molds. So I'm just mixing equal weight of both the parts and then combining it together. And then I'll be mixing it until it's uniform in color. You want to stir pretty slowly. Some parts of this video I had to speed up. So I'm mixing it until it's all one color. And there we have it. And then I'm going to be pouring into my little glass container to make this my mold. So you want to pour from up high and have a really thin stream when you're pouring molds. So I've been told by TikTok perfectionists. But MoldStar is pretty like user friendly if it's like your first time. Like I've never had a problem with any of my molds, even the amateur way that I pour everything. So it usually works out pretty great. Now I'm just tapping it really fast against the little piece of styrofoam I'm working on just to get any extra bubbles up. Now this is a couple hours later, I think closer to 6 hours. This was a really big mold, and I'm just using a butter knife to pry the silicone away from the glass a little bit so I can lift it up. Alright. So there's my mold. So you want to peel off that transfer tape from the bottom. And then once you peel that back, you take out your blanks that you've used. And then you'll have your mold cavity after ready to pour resin into. So I'm just popping out all those little pieces, and if you have any excess, you can easily cut it away with scissors, or a lot of people use like cuticle trimmers to get those extra little bits off. So there's my finished mold, and then I would pour resin into it to make the earrings after. So here's a look at the earrings once they're done. So these are made of resin that I've poured into the mold and then let harden, and I've just drilled them and put hoops on them.